Good evening, ladies and menfolk. Welcome to episode 79 of Word Ninjas Live. I am Charles, your instigator of literary and creative productivity and insanity. And joining me tonight is my regular slew of co-hosts, Will
Hello.
and Calvin.
Greetings.
We do not have any special guests tonight. We did not manage to kidnap any, unfortunately, so it's just going to be a relatively regular episode this time around.
Yep, you're stuck with just us this week.
But to make up for that, we have a whole slew of various highlights. But first, talkie points. The first and only talkie point for this week is one from me. When life, the universe, and everything tries to go against your productivity, do you choose to be creative? Do you force yourself to be creative? Or do you just choose to procrastinate instead? And this became a question worth talking about, at least in my perspective, because I didn't do jack shit this last week. I chose procrastination over productivity because I got a plague of doom, so I just hibernated through the entire weekend where I had 3 days set aside to do absolutely everything productive, and no, just sleep, and more sleep, and coughing, and pain. But I was kind of curious, when not sick, if you don't have that excuse, how do people handle these types of situations? Because it does seem to come up on a relatively regular basis, where something tries to get in the way of productivity.
Well, I'd say, as tempting as procrastination is, over procrastination can be bad.
How
It's,
so?
what was that?
How so?
Well, like a little bit of procrastinating, like if life throws you a curveball, it may be okay to procrastinate a little bit just to help get your mind back into things. But if you procrastinate and don't be creative too much, you could fall into that slump of doom and despair, and then it's all the harder to crawl back out.
I would never do such a thing.
Though I also advise against forcing creativity because that could just be like beating your head against a wall. So I would say I usually baby step it. I actually have that going on right now where I have to realign my creative endeavors, I think, because I've been trying to force creativity and the final product is subpar compared to my previous works. So I still need to be creative, but I need to be more selective about what I'm creative on, with some procrastinating on the side.
Everybody needs downtime every once in a while, even amidst productivity.
Mm. Like watching Game Break.
We've been surprisingly diligent about that, too. I don't think we've missed a day yet.
If we've gone, let's see,
It's
we've
hard
gone,
to procrastinate playing a video game.
At least on
I
purpose.
think
Yeah.
I think we've gone 10 days straight uploading.
Goodness.
Hooray.
And we've had 4 out of 5 of our crew participate.
That's not bad at all.
I am curious to see what Justin's recording is going to be like once he finally gets to that game.
All in good time.
Let's see. I think I was gonna say something. Um, yeah, I try not to force creativity too much, especially since the idea machine likes to rebel if I push too hard. Like if ideas don't come, I like that's my cue to take a break and just like give myself time to decompress and try to deal with work out whatever is going on, and or maybe just give myself some time to relax and not do something for a change. Sit in bed for a while, watch a little TV, stare at YouTube for a little bit. But procrastination can be good sometimes. It oftentimes for me, taking some time off helps the ideas start to regenerate. So
I think I was just mostly
once in a while.
I was just mostly frustrated because I had set aside the whole weekend to actually do like 3 hours of productivity a day. I was barely awake for 3 hours a day that weekend. I was lucky if I was awake that much.
Plague of Doom is like extraneating circumstances. You want to be creative. The spirit is willing, but the body is not.
Yeah. Which is why this week is all the more filled with stuff that needs to happen.
Mm.
Let's see here. Checking the comments. Yeah, of course Richie doesn't believe me about productivity. Not surprising. And Peter suggests that I should workshop. The comment is CJ should workshop his story. I presume he means mine and not his. It's probably for the safety of mankind that we don't do that. At least not for a good while. This is barely even alpha stages of a draft.
Mm.
No one should have to workshop and read an alpha stage draft. That's how 50 Shades happened. That's an alpha stage draft that somehow managed to get farther than it should have.
I learned humorous news about 50 Shades, but I don't know if it's appropriate to... Well, I could mention this. I'll just be vague about it. You guys, some of our viewers may be familiar with, I think we've mentioned it before, the website Bad Dragon.
We've mentioned it on panels and on the show. And probably
if you're familiar with it, you know what they produce. Not safe for work. They did their research.
Materials.
They did their research and absolutely refused to take advantage of the 50 Shades of Grey movie because they find it so horrible. A company that makes what they make wants nothing to do with 50 Shades of Grey.
That should tell you something.
Yeah.
There's also minimal tie-over between those two.
Well, they usually do silly little sales when big movies and whatnot are coming out, just like weird tie-in sales. So they could have made some kind of sale related to that, but after doing the research and reading the books, they decided they wanted nothing to do with it at all. They wanted to be completely hands-off.
Goodness. I know people who have gone to see the movie and read the books. They are brave people.
So long as they accept that it has absolutely nothing to do with a real BDSM relationship, and is everything to do with a horrific, abusive relationship.
Details for some.
They even tried to defend themselves on Twitter, comparing themselves to Mockingjay. They said
Uh,
something about, you guys don't like us for the abuse in our movie, but you guys are fine with Mockingjay with children getting, hurt and killed. Except as someone pointed out in Mockingjay, it's pointed out that, the whole point is how horrible it is that these kids are being made to do this. It's not being romanticized. It's being pointed out as this is a horrible, terrible, awful thing.
it's more the media which is trying to spin it in disconcerting ways,
Right.
both for Mockingjay and 50 Shades.
Mm.
Media's disconcertingly special about those types of things.
Yeah. The media only cares about ratings.
And advertisements. Can't forget that.
Yeah, whatever makes them money.
We were talking about creativity and productivity. How did we get off to 50 Shades of Grey?
My bad?
I don't even know who spun us out. For our viewers and listeners, post in the appropriate comments, either on YouTube or iTunes, in regards to this talkie point. How do you handle your creativity and productivity and all that when life tries to get in the way? Do you choose to be creative? Do you try and do a balance? Or do you just procrastinate? Or is it a situation-by-situation basis? Let us know. Continue the conversations. And onwards to the highlights reel. I actually tossed in a lot of stuff because I kept seeing stuff in my news feed. So... Oh, because it's all in one... Gosh dang it, Hangouts. Play nice. We do the infinite screen because it's being silly. Okay. Oh, and I can't cheat and look at the show notes now. That's why I like having it in a different window. Sadness. Good thing they're in order. Moving on before Richie gets cranky. The first piece I found, or that came across, was tips on writing a great song. I skimmed through it, admittedly, but for me it kind of came off as this is mostly for like the top 40 type of songs, not necessarily for a certain genre or style or some of the more indie type stuff. But I thought I'd just toss it on here to see what other people thought of it. Their tips on writing a great song: start with a great title. Not quite sure starting with a title is how you start with a song, great or not.
No.
All right, so they're 0 for 1. How about a catchy hook?
I was going to say, though, for the title, that is apparently how Ninja Sex Party exactly starts.
Oh my.
They start with a title and then see if they can write a song about it or not. They apparently have a huge list of song titles that they cannot work with whatsoever.
Oh my. Yeah. What about... Go ahead.
I think it sounds like with Ninja Sex Party, their titles are basically double as topics, so I think they can get away with that.
No, Ninja Sex Party is Danny Avidan and Ninja Brian's band. It's mostly just weird, crazy stuff. Like Unicorn Wizard.
Moving on with the tips.
We were really good at distractions tonight.
Oh, we gotta fill up the show somehow. I'm not so sure that you need to have a catchy hook before you actually create the song, even. That seems like putting the cart before the horse, or however that phrase goes. And the next one is lyrics with a universal topic. Yes, relevancy is definitely important. If people can associate with some part of the song, I would think that's great. But how universal are we
But
getting here?
I really don't think like that should be like the be all end all. Like, there's always going to be something that not everybody's going to relate to. So why really like narrow yourself down like that?
How about the next one? Lyrics with a universal topic. No, we already did that one. Melody, a common person can sing. I have nothing against anyone singing a song that they appreciate. That's fine, whether you are able to sing in key or on pitch or not.
Tell
If you
that to the
enjoy a song, by all means.
hmm. Tell that to the musicians of the '80s.
Yeah, well, the '80s is the '80s. Uh, I have issues with this in regards to poetry. I'm
Mm.
not going to say anything about music, but rhyming scheme. I feel like Calvin would have more effective commentary on this one in regards to music, hopefully. Maybe. I can't see the
Um,
Hangout screen, so if you're making any motions towards me, I'm not going to see it.
oh, no, I'm not.
Okay. I'm trying to cue you
Let's see.
in on the commentary, so it's not just me.
And I'm trying to think right now, which is bad because I actually thumbed through this earlier today. Rhyming schemes, like I kind of like, let's see, which rhyming scheme do I usually use? I think I use, wow, I really do not remember right now.
Well, for our
But
listeners, while you're thinking about it, the article suggests like the more common rhyming schemes of A, which is, I feel, a little infantile and can get very complicated depending on the word you choose. ABAB or ABBA, ABAC, the standard type of poetry stuff, even ABABCC. So pretty standard, but I don't know. I'm not really sold on needing to rhyme your music.
it definitely does help, but it's like not really a requirement. I think it might be a good challenge for like songwriters and poets alike, but not completely necessary. And I just happen to remember which rhyme scheme I use, and it's not any of those there.
Just gotta be different. Which one do you?
It's AABB.
Hmm. Okay, now I think we're actually getting into some of the more worthwhile tips of song structure builds strong songs. Having a structure, I feel like, is actually a good, worthwhile thing to keep in mind when creating a song, either by lyrics or actual music, and then trying to merge the two, because there are certain parts of a song, just like there are certain parts of a story, and it's good to understand how all of them kind of get put together and work with each other.
If you've listened to any of my songs, you could probably tell that I am pretty like dead set on a specific structure, which is like pretty much looks similar to that last one there. The only
For
thing
audio
missing,
listeners, what would that
oh,
one be?
intro, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, and some variation of that. And I usually throw in a bridge somewhere.
Just for good measure.
Yeah, like, song structure is like something I'm very stickler about. So I think out of everything in that article, uh, that one caught my attention the most,
And
and that's the one I most agree with.
the next one, I can't really speak to at all because, yes, I played the flute for more years than I'd like to admit, but that is one note at a time. I don't do chords. The next tip is chord progressions. I can't speak to that at all. I understand their
Yeah.
significance and importance, but that's it.
I don't deal with like a specific formula when it comes to chord progressions. If something comes to mind, I just roll with it, and it usually doesn't. It usually never as simple as like C F C F. Kind of throwing caution to the wind.
How about setting a time limit?
I really don't try setting time limits, but given my penchant for structure, most of my songs usually make it within the 4 minute limit.
Isn't the time limit more for definitely like getting released in the industry because like if you're
Radio
within a
airplay.
certain time limit, you're more likely to get radio releases and whatnot.
Unless you're a band in the
Um,
80s, and then all bets are off.
Yeah, well,
what a lot of bands like to do, what a lot of bands and record labels like to do is like make an album version of a song and then make a radio friendly version of a song, which usually will like cut out like extra courses or like shorten the bridge a little bit to make it within the 3 to 4 minute mark.
hmm.
Or cut out any controversial words.
No, that too. But that's usually the way they try to get around that limitation to get radio play.
And it seems like this article is about 50-50 in regards to stuff that does make a lot of sense overall and stuff that's really not quite 100% or not necessarily applicable to all artists or all styles.
And the mileage kind of varies with this article, but
Yeah.
it's it's a pretty decent starting point.
And it was
You don't
interesting.
have
Go ahead.
you don't really have to like follow this to a T. Just kind of find your own groove, you know.
Yeah. Similar to writing, there are rules. It's good to learn them so that you know what they are, but then once you learn them and understand them, you can bend and break them because that's how it
Very
goes.
true.
All right, enough of that. Onwards to Game of Thrones. Apparently, the Game of Thrones TV show is actually going to start killing certain characters that have not necessarily been killed in the books, which I guess means all bets are off on certain characters that somehow are still alive in the series. I don't know how anyone is still alive in that series, but it's interesting how the reader of the books have kind of known any spoilers at this point that were going to happen and who's going to survive how long, but I can't imagine that they would try and kill off any of the more regular and recurring characters on the TV show if they're still alive in the books later on, unless this slowly becomes an alternate reality adaptation. This just feels weird. They haven't really given much details because yeah, they don't really want to give any spoilers as to who they're going to choose and all that, but
They're probably going to annoy a lot of the fans who read the books because now they're going to obviously deviate.
I could understand if they were getting ahead of the books or in danger of getting ahead of the books, but I don't think they're quite there yet.
Hmm.
And George R. R. Martin has been pretty adamant about saying he's going to stay ahead of the show.
Right.
So I'll be kind of interested to see how they deviate and how they're going to make it play out and be believable, hopefully believable, and not just doing it for the sake of shock value or ratings or anything silly like that. Because it is television, so sometimes they just do that. Because ratings.
Keep people on their toes,
Yeah.
especially the ones who have read all the books.
It does eliminate
Or
the
piss them off.
spoiler advantage that the readers have.
True. I'm curious for any who have actually read the series up to where it is so far. Are they going to watch the show more to be surprised by anything like that, or are they just going to be more annoyed by it? Because it is kind of nice in like anime when there's a filler arc that hasn't been in a manga, you don't really know what's going to happen. You know, for the most part, that status quo is going to be restored eventually, or that certain characters just can't die because reasons, but there are going to be surprises and new content, so different viewers react in different ways. If you have read or watched Game of Thrones, by all means, post in the comments what you think of this. Let us know.
Daryl Green comments, characters being killed off in Game of Thrones, just another day.
Pretty much. It's really just going to be a matter of which ones and how. All right, next up is 10 grammar mistakes people love to correct that aren't actually wrong. I'm curious how many of our viewers and listeners have fallen to these before. Let's see, the first one saying, I am good when someone asks, how are you? Versus, I am well. This one is pretty much semantics at this point. You can say either one. It's become such common verbiage that do you really care anymore if someone says I am good versus I am well, unless you're writing a character that is a little stuck up or very specific on how they speak? I actually can't think of a single person who replies I am well when asked such a question. Not even in books, actually. How about splitting infinitives? I know I've done it more than I would like to admit or acknowledge.
I knew what it was.
I forget the full explanation. Would be nice if we had Kit on, but it's basically putting a word in between, like, I should have thought of this beforehand, because I do know how to explain it, but I can't at the moment. I'm blanking. So, moving on. Using over instead of more than to indicate greater numerical value. Over, more than, greater than. Yes, they do mean slightly different things, but it is basically becoming just another argument of semantics in the American English language. They're all blending together to the point of such commonality that you don't really need to worry as much unless you're working for a particular publisher or style where they have a preference. I mean, if you're doing technical writing and they have a stated preference of certain phrasing or how you should word things, then yes, focus on that. But if you're doing it for yourself, for your own novels, write how you want to write it. Write your characters how you think they would speak and talk. Don't worry so much about such semantics.
How do you feel now that the Associated Press says that using more than and over interchangeably doesn't really matter?
I'm surprised that they would actually make that statement. But it is nice. Makes my work a little bit easier. One piece easier. It's just everything else they choose. How many people actually knew the difference between preventative and preventive?
I sure didn't.
Not me.
This is a similar situation. If I can't think of a single person or example where someone used the word preventive, except maybe in a technical or academic manner. I've always used preventative, which apparently is a little too common, or people raise their eyebrows at it. Well, nuts to them. Preventative is perfectly acceptable.
Hooray! 'Cause I use it all the time.
How about using that instead of who as a pronoun to refer to a person? Unless you're dealing with academia or technical writing, that is a perfect replacement for who. I mean, if you want to get specific, sometimes you can make a point of who versus whom, but who versus that, they're relatively interchangeable. And I don't care how many English teachers from high school are cringing at that statement without really realizing why. That is a perfectly acceptable word, and nuts to any English teacher that says otherwise.
I
Of course,
think I've
no.
had it hammered in my. Oh,
Go ahead.
I think I've had it like hammered in my head to like use who like specifically to in reference to people, and I think I'm probably gonna always be stuck on that. I actively try to correct myself if I say that instead of who.
Hmm.
Well, thankfully,
That's
it's one
all
of those where it's personal preference at this point. You're allowed to use either of them.
Yeah, I'm all right with that.
How about using words like slow and quick as adverbs? I can already hear all the English teachers saying adverbs are from the devil itself. I'm kind of curious if adverbs are so horrifyingly bad and should never be used no matter what under any circumstances ever until the end of time itself. Why do they exist?
Mm.
I mean, yes, don't use it too much. There is a balance here, but I feel like they should be a little more acceptable than a lot of academia and just normal publishers even claim, because they do sometimes help better explain and position the phrasings of some sort of concept in a piece. Yes, there are alternative ways of doing it, but adverbs still exist. I don't see why you can't use them strategically or sparingly.
Hmm. Like salt. Sorry, I'm just laughing at the article for it where they refer to Weird Al's word crimes video, and I'm just laughing at they refer to it as a mean-spirited tone of the song. And it's like, yeah, but it's Weird Al. You should never take any of his songs seriously. He's a comedian, singer, songwriter.
I can't really take him seriously, period, because he is a comedian.
Yeah, you're not supposed to take that song seriously. He's purposely going overboard on purpose for a laugh.
Yeah.
But the point with the adverbs is still true. I probably use slow and quick instead of slowly and quickly. I just use whatever sounds right when I'm writing or saying a sentence.
Right.
And another thing to
Same
keep
here.
in mind is if you're also having characters talk, like if it's in dialogue, how would the character speak normally? How do you speak normally or hear other people speak normally? Do people use adverbs in normal language? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
They're not all going to speak like they're an English professor or in the high tiers of academia. You're allowed to have people speak normally and use normal words and normal phrasings that you would normally hear. Because I say so.
I have to fight with text editors all the time for telling me I spell words wrong because I take the G out of ing words, even though people speak them that way all the time. Like, instead of I'm trying to say something, someone might go, I'm trying to say something. And they don't pronounce the G.
You put
I'm
the
like,
little
well,
apostrophe after the N.
right. But even when you put in that apostrophe, some word editors and tech things will be like, you spelled it wrong.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
supposed to be a G.
I've added a lot of those words into my dictionary at this point just to make it shut up.
But that's how people talk, so
Yeah.
apostrophe it is.
How many people have actually ended a sentence with a preposition before?
I end a lot of things with a preposition.
Preposition, not proposition. There is a difference.
I'm not even sure. I might be a bad writer. Maybe I didn't pay attention all the way back in high school English a decade ago, but I don't even remember what a preposition is.
Prepositional phrases like I put something on the chair. On the chair is the prepositional phrase, and trying to rephrase a sentence so that a prepositional phrase is not at the end of the sentence is just an exercise in frustration.
That seems silly. What's
Yeah.
wrong with saying I put something on the chair? Period.
Yeah.
It is a complete sentence that explains exactly what happened. End of story.
And again, people use that language in everyday dialogue. So if you're making believable characters, they're going to use believable dialogue.
For example, don't worry, I put the turkey in the oven.
How would you rephrase that so a preposition is not at the end?
Except for to swap it around and say, I put the turkey in the oven, semicolon, don't worry.
Yeah, that's one way of going about it.
But that's silly. No one talks like that.
Wait, are they talking about prepositional phrases or just prepositions, period?
I guess that is a good
Because
difference.
it seems they're more talking about like a sentence like that program is something you should not mess with. Like ending a sentence in with and for and on and things like that.
Oh, yeah, fair point. This is focusing on not ending a sentence with a preposition, not prepositional phrase. That makes a little more sense. That's a little trickier to play around with. But they do give examples of how you can end a sentence with a preposition. Oh, everyone's favorite style, passive structures. Like she enjoys being fussed over. Over is a preposition, technically, but you can't really rephrase that in such a way that the preposition isn't at the end.
I'm just laughing at this Winston Churchill quote. This is the sort of bloody nonsense up with which I will not put.
Yeah, I mean, that is how you would have to phrase sentences like that so that a preposition is not at the end. You can barely read that easily. Never mind speak it easily.
Mm.
Or if you see that in a text, that's going to trip you up
It
because
tripped
it
me up
just
while I
looks
was reading it
weird.
out loud, and I read through it 3 times beforehand.
Yeah. That's why
Good
there's
old Winston Churchill.
that's why it is exceptional or it is acceptable to put prepositions at the end of a sentence sometimes, because there are exceptions to every rule. They can be bent, they can be broken, but you need to understand them in the first place. Teachers forget that whole you can bend and break them after you understand them part, though.
Is it just me, or does it seem like a lot of these rules are being relaxed because like there've been so many instances in so many years where people have been like fighting to correct it, and right now like all the style guides and English professors are just saying, you know what, fuck it, do whatever you want.
Now they're just trying to make sure people use full words instead of text speak.
Yeah, it's not even leet speak anymore. That already died away. Now it's just text speak.
People are handing in research papers in like middle school and high school to their high school teachers with almost no vowels in them and all lowercase letters and no punctuation, because that's how they think you're supposed to write. So I think all things considered, we can forgive some of these so long as we know how to spell the words correctly.
No vowels. Is this an English class or a Welsh class? Make the difference. Goodness. All right. Next tip up is treating data as singular instead of plural.
Well, there was only one data.
Technically, I mean, the others were lore and before. Nemesis. But yeah, technically there is the word datum for data. How many people, even in academia, are going to remember that difference?
There's a reason Latin is a dead language.
Yeah. It even says their 2007 copy of the AP style book uses the data have been collected as an example of a sentence where data is being treated as a group of individual items.
Oh, that sounds so weird.
Ugh.
I've never heard anyone use have after data. I've always heard the data has.
That's
Mind
weird.
you, the two of us are computer science majors.
Yeah. Where 0 is a number. 0 is the first number.
Is 2 a number?
Not in binary. But for computer programming, you start at 0, you don't start at 1. Because that's what computers do. And they has data.
Well, they should return him. He has duties to do on the ship.
That's interesting, though, because you can say the data has been collected, but you don't go, I has the data. You go, I have the data. Well, then you're referring to yourself as I.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Both would still be grammatically correct.
Mm.
All right. Tip number 9, using they as a singular pronoun.
Mm.
This one actually goes farther back than I expected. It's just kind of come and gone in usage, but it's nice to actually see it becoming a little more accepted, because sometimes you do need a singular pronoun that is not he or she, him or her, his or hers. Sometimes you need that bit of flexibility. Sometimes you have a gender-neutral character or thing that you need to address. Sometimes you don't want to reveal the gender of your character quite yet. And that's hard to do otherwise.
And it is just insulting when referring to a person.
Yes.
Right.
And I'm a little frustrated that I actually had a link to a piece from like the early 90s that actually showed the progression of gender neutral pronouns, but it was apparently archived ages ago, and now the Wayback Machine lost the link, so I can't even show it anymore.
Mm.
I'm going to have to do some hunting for that because it was actually pretty interesting how certain ones kept recurring. Like they'd fade out for a couple decades and then return all of a sudden, sometimes with a hyphen in it or this or that. So I want to try and find that again for next week. But yeah, they is becoming more accepted as a singular pronoun. That is nice. And the last tip from this one is starting a sentence with hopefully. I didn't even know that one was that upsetting for people. Why would you not allow to be using hopefully at the beginning of a sentence?
People who hate commas.
Well, nuts to them. I love commas. The more commas, the better. No, I don't like their bonus one. That one actually does bother me. Their bonus one is saying I could care less versus I could not care less.
That means you do care, at least a little.
I understand in regards to the commonality of usage in regards to this one. I mean, for the most part, you do get your point across, but it's not even a matter of semantics. That one, it does specifically state whether you do or do not care.
Yeah, that is the literal definition of the word. I could care less means that you literally could care less than you do. So that you do care a little bit. There's room to care less than you actually are. Whereas what you mean to say, I couldn't care less, means that your caring value is as low as it can be.
It's the difference between I have no fucks to give and I have at least one fuck to give.
Or to put it in terms of something physical, it's the difference of I have a little bit of water in my glass versus I have no water in my glass.
Yeah, I don't like that one. Nuts to that one.
Well, I avoid that altogether by just using I don't give a insert noun here.
That's an unusual phrase. I haven't heard anyone use that one before. All right, moving on. The only reason this one is in here is because it came across my newsfeed from Forbes, of all places. I don't really see Forbes as keeping track of books and publishers and upcoming releases, never mind historical fiction, but hey, this came across, so I thought I'd toss it in here. It looks like February... Oh, so yesterday it actually came out. This came, I think it came out last Friday. No, the 16th, never mind. There's the date on there. Anyway, a new historical fiction piece coming out from Alison Pataki, who is the daughter of George Pataki, New York governor, for those not familiar with New York governors.
Is she related to Helga Pataki?
You never know.
That would be interesting if she was.
I did think
I'd like to
that
see how
when
that
I originally read it. But the historical fiction is called The Accidental Empress, being published by Howard Books. And apparently it's her second novel. So that's pretty cool that she's already gotten one out, and this is the second historical fiction piece. I actually do like historical fiction. I just don't read it as much because I have way too many young adult books and sci-fi books and fantasy books in my piles. Just the thought of adding more scares me. But this is actually a really nice piece on Forbes explaining the topic and going a little bit into detail of why it's so very well written. And apparently she also wrote The Traitor's Wife, which I remember hearing about that a lot when it came out. That one was apparently exposing the story of Peggy, the intriguing woman behind Benedict Arnold. That's probably why it
Interesting.
was talked about so much at the time. But oh, who was this one focusing on? Do. I see the name, but I don't see the significance of the name. Scrolling through. Should have read this earlier so I could remember. Somewhere in. It just gives me the name Sissy, but what was the significance of the name? Oh, Sissy, the Habsburg Empress and wife of Emperor Franz Joseph I. Okay. So that gives you the connection of who the person is and the time period and all that. I admit I probably will not be getting this book simply because I have over 250 in my pile already, but it is nice to see that historical fiction is still coming out at a regular pace and becoming best-selling books, and that even Forbes is picking it up. So that's a nice bit of recognition for Alison Pataki. I still don't know why Forbes even came across my list, though, because it's not really one that I normally look at for anything, but there you go. And I also tossed in a link to the actual book on Amazon in our show notes if you want to grab a copy via Kindle, hardcover, or audiobook. All right. We're getting towards the end, guys. Next up are new book bundles, unless Calvin has something to say.
Real quick, looking through the comments, going back to the highlight about grammar mistakes, Daryl Green in the comments said, "For anyone, don't say the person over and over." And he asks, "Is figure acceptable? It does sound gender neutral, is it?"
Oh, so using person instead of they or he or she, or or figure.
Or figure, yeah.
I think it's okay to use it sparingly and strategically, but not repetitively.
Variety is a wonderful thing.
All right. We have two book bundles that have recently come out that caught my eye. First one from Humble Bundle. Their latest book bundle is from Subterranean Press. And it's kind of a hodgepodge, really, of different books, but what was it all about? They are celebrating 2 decades of excellence. There was another significance to all of these, but it's mainly just like a 20-year span of books they really want to highlight. For whatever price you so choose, you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 books. So like for $1, you can get 7 ebooks, which is why I love these Humble Bundles. And if you pay the average price, which continuously gyrates and all that, you get another 5. And if you pay 15 or more, you get an extra 3. So those are the premium books. I'm debating getting this one because they have authors in there like Clive Barker with Tortured Souls, The Legend of Primordium, and Kelly Armstrong with Amityville Horrible. I love Kelly Armstrong's books. She is a fantastic writer, and just seeing that name in this list almost validated the entire list for me. That's how much I enjoy her books. And then, of course, Clive Barker was right next to it, which means I'm probably going to be horrified and impressed because he is also a fantastic writer, but very creepy. That one's probably more up Justin's alley. But they have 15 books in the bundle altogether if you go all out, so it's kind of hard to beat that. It's basically $1 a book. That's pretty cost effective if you ask me. And for the audio listeners, you got like Brayon's Gold by Peter Brett, The Top of the Volcano by Harlan Ellison, The Ape's Wife and Other Stories by Caitlin Kiernan, Jacaranda, A Novella of the Clockwork Century by Sherry Priest, Muse of Fire by Dan Simmons, Inside Job by Connie Willis, The Jack Vance Treasury by Jack Vance, The Merchant and the Alchemist Gate by Ted Chiang, The End of the Sentence by Maria Davana Hadley and Kat Howard, The Chronicles of Master Lee, and Number 10 Ox by Barry Hugart. That's a fantastic title for a book. I'm intrigued. Who is Master Lee, and what or who is Number 10 Ox? And for the premium books, if you go all out with $15, it's Black Hat Jack by Joe Lansdale, The Hunter from the Woods by Robert McCammon, and Academic Exercises by KJ Parker. And as of this episode, you still got little under 14 days, so basically 2 weeks to save up to $15 or however much you want to pay for this bundle, if you so choose. And as with all of those, they usually do like the .mobi and .epub, so regardless of your e-reader software, you'll be able to read all of them. And this one's over at humblebundle.com. Obviously, the police do not appreciate this, as I hear sirens in the background. Your story bundle for this time round is the Women of the Apocalypse bundle, which just from that, when I saw it in the email, I was almost sold. This one is only 9 books, 5 if you pay whatever you feel like, and 4 more if you pay above probably 10, I'm going to guess. No, 12. So if you pay $12, you get 9 ebooks. But they're all from female authors. You got The Culling by J.C. Andrzejewski, Driven by Eve Silver, Flaming Dove by Daniel Aronson, The Digital Sea by Tomas Carpenter, Netherwood by Michelle Lang, Zombie Battle Part 1, Outbreak by Jacqueline Druga, and Angel of the Badlands by Bianca Dark, Galileo's Stepdaughter by Amanda McCarter, and Silver Acheron, A River of Pain by Kiera Michelle Telford. I may end up with this one because I just love the cover art on a lot of these, and these just look like a lot of fun to read. And they seem to cover the whole gambit of genres. I mean, it seems like you have a bit of romance, you have some horror, sci-fi, fantasy, zombies, what may look like a bat creature vampire thing, all across the board. This one's over at storybundle.com/apocalypse. They have other bundles still running, but we've discussed those in previous episodes. So definitely go check all of them out. All of the links to what we've discussed so far are in the show notes over at fcwriters.com for episode 79 on that post. And Infinity Screen, stop screen sharing. All right. Now that we're done with the surprisingly long highlights reel, time for productivity and inspiration. My productivity for the last week was, as I wrote in the show notes, I accomplished fuck all. I slept for basically 3 days straight, and I have yet to catch up because of it. And that actually made me pretty upset. I was a very unhappy camper since last episode because of this, because I had all sorts of stuff I wanted to do. I didn't do any of it. Meanwhile, everyone else was thankfully still going on full steam ahead, but I feel bad when I can't actually get stuff done, when I plan on getting stuff done, or when I can't contribute my fair share or expected fair share in things. But it's also reminded me that while I have a part to play in everything regarding full coverage writers and Inspire the Muse and all that, I actually have the choice in just how much I have to do and which parts I have to play, because Captain's prerogative. If I want to let my minions take care of stuff while I'm sleeping for 3 days straight, then so be it.
Because you can.
Because I had to. But yeah, I didn't really accomplish much. I'm trying to catch up. I'm slowly getting back into the I lost my train of thought and the whole phrase I was going to use. I'm getting back into it. Hey, moving on. It's time for someone else to speak finally. Will, how did you fare this past week?
Stuff. I was brought to the realization that I maybe have gotten distracted with Roommate with where I wanted to go towards the end story. Remember, when you're writing a story, you need to have an ending in mind that you need to work towards. And if you don't work towards it, you're going to start writing a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't mean anything. Like most of the chapter I had spent the past month and a half working on can probably just go right in the garbage, and it wouldn't change anything at all. And that's
Aw.
bad. It's not terrible stuff, it's just irrelevant stuff, or unnecessary stuff, or repeated stuff that I've covered already. So I had to decide where my priorities are, and I was told that I should write what I feel when I feel it. Which may not necessarily mean writing for Roommate. It might be writing for other things, or random things, or stories that are going to come after Roommate. I can at least get them planned and plotted out. This goes back to before when we were talking about don't force creativity. If I'm feeling creative but it's not for Roommate, I shouldn't try to force my creativity to be for Roommate. I should roll with what my creativity is on. Because I'm still creating something. And it'll be better because it'll be what I'm feeling, and I'm very fickle about what I want to be creative about. But I did write down a list, a long list. I have this the little book here, and I filled up an entire page of text
Oh my.
of all the things I still want to have happen in the rest of Roommate. And writing it reminded me of where I want to go with it. And I just saw all these other things I was writing, working towards, and I'm like, there's no point to it. It's not needed. So I'm going to have to re-figure out where I'm going to go. The ending of the story may be sooner coming, because I may have been extending things out and being like, I want to do this, but I need to do this first. And now I'm like, do I? Maybe I don't. Maybe I can just do that. I can just do a little bit of setup and quit wasting time and get to the end. So, reaffirming what I need to do, and it may cause delay in the next chapter, but so be it! The next chapter will be awesome because of it. And in the meantime, I'll write other stuff, and I still want to see if I can get something out once per month, even if it's not a chapter for Roommate, as long as it's something. Then I was creative, and no one can complain. Yay! Okay, I'm done.
And how about the Calvin?
Let's see. I actually had a four-day weekend this past weekend. Keep hearing police.
What did you do?
No comment. But yeah, I had a 4-day weekend this past weekend, and it was great, except that productivity was not nearly as productive as I expected, as I really intended. I think just being continually emotionally exhausted, I just needed to take a nice bit of time and just lay in the bed for a little bit. But I did manage to get some decent progress done with music for Infinity's Light. I've been chatting back and forth with Richie over a few things, and I've also been slowly building up my library of sound patches. and I actually messaged Richie this morning and told him, and just out of nowhere, and just said, "It's all your fault, Richie. It's all your fault." But it looks like he's pretty happy right now, and that makes me happy too.
Are these sound patches those things that you were discussing earlier in our group Skype chat about how absurdly expensive they are when you add them all up, or was that something else?
No, that was exactly what I was talking about.
Okay.
There was one in particular that I purchased. That one was the most expensive, and I'm a tad disappointed with them, but I can work with them. What sucks even more is because it was a download and not a physical purchase, there's no refunds. I'm like, fuck.
For those of our viewers and listeners not familiar with what a sound patch is and why they are so infuriatingly expensive, could you illuminate us?
So basically, a sound patch is basically a collection of sounds that you can use in a digital audio workstation program, like like Reason, Logic, Pro Tools, things like that. Basically, like, sound patches are what actually makes the sounds when you press on your keyboard or pencil them in with your mouse and things like that. A lot of these patches are, well, they range from free to pretty like very affordable to respectably affordable to ungodly expensive. And what sucks about a lot of them is, like, some companies will give you the option to like demo them out before you buy them. But in the case of this one sound patch that I purchased, it was like there was no way of like demoing them out. They didn't have like a demo patch that I could test out. So I had to take a chance, and I dropped more money than I wanted to on it. And I'm not terribly happy with it. I mean, I have to fiddle around with it a lot to try to get it to do what I want, but there is always the other option, but that option is illegal, and we're trying to create a legitimate business here.
Are you sure those police sirens weren't for you?
No comment. But yeah, that's my sound patch debacle. Though I did purchase a really good sound patch, and it was only $20, and I was super happy. Like, I'm very happy with this one.
Hooray!
Mainly because of the selection of sounds that I got out of this one. Where's that email? But it's basically like a lot of like plucked instruments, and stringed instruments that give like they're really like pseudo creepy sound. Like I was telling Richie earlier, like like one of the songs I was working on, like it definitely, like, it really sounded like a Philip Glass composition, and I was more than okay with that. Philip Glass is one of my favorite composers.
Now I'm all intrigued.
In due time, in due time. But things are going pretty good with the music, all things considered, and I'm pretty happy. And even more than that, Richie's happy too.
Hooray. We like to make Richie
But
happy.
yes, at least I hope Richie's happy.
Well, he's probably happy with you, not necessarily with me. I think he's already cranky about this episode. All right. With that, I'm actually going to toss one last question out there before we start wrapping things up. How have you all been enjoying participating in Game Break so far? Since all of us have had at least one episode posted. Some of us more than others, admittedly.
Hmm.
I have a lot of free time.
You have a more reliable recording schedule.
I've been having fun with it.
Yeah. How
I've
many
been
episodes
enjoying.
of BioShock are you into now?
8 officially, and if we can work out the quirks of the one I did earlier today, it'll be 9.
Yay.
I've been enjoying watching those those BioShock playthroughs, especially your dealings with the Big Daddy.
And I didn't die once, shifty eyes.
Nope.
It was most
Not
impressive how
once.
you didn't die.
I
I'm
figured out
definitely
what
gonna.
that warbly wormy thing was.
Yay.
It's apparently a sea slug.
Oh, fun.
That should have been explained in episode 7.
I think I'm still watching.
7 and 8.
I think I'm either on episode 6 or I have yet to see episode 6. I'm a little behind. I've been having fun taking the more slow and steady approach to Game Break by doing a visual novel, which I've been having fun with it, but I'm not quite sure how viewers are taking it, considering it's just me speaking for like 40 minutes. Just changing the pitch of my voice ever so slightly depending on the character. But I
still have to watch those.
I enjoy the visual novels. It's interesting seeing the stories unfold while you have a bit of a soundtrack going on in the background and the occasional animation on the screen. I was not expecting Dysfunctional Systems to give me such a curveball in episode 4, which will probably go up this weekend, but now I'm curious how it's all going to go down.
I haven't watched that one yet. I gotta run through that one for quality control, but I look forward to that one.
Well, I mean, episode 3, the 14-year-old goes into a bar and gets drunk. Like, okay, things are stepping up a little bit. Episode 4, my only reaction to that is, well, that escalated quickly.
Speaking of escalating quickly, me playing I Am Bread.
Oh no.
Please tell me there's going to be more episodes.
Oh, there will be more episodes. I just don't know when.
Fair enough.
I think I have to be in a particular mood to play it, and depending on how recording goes, that mood may change quickly, especially if it continues to crash on me, and therefore destroying the video.
Oh no.
Y'all don't understand. I had to record that first I Am Bread video 3 times. It took me 2 hours. It took me 2 hours to get that last video.
Well, that was me in Commander
And
Keen.
I'm actually very surprised I was as composed as I was in that first video, because I could have gone like complete Samuel L. Jackson commentary on that game.
You wouldn't be the first.
I kind of like Winter's comment. For Game Break, there should be an episode where Calvin plays I Am Bread in Morgan Freeman's voice.
I may consider that one.
And then that becomes the most watched video on our channel.
And so, the scrappy piece of toast, scrappy piece of bread, broke free from the mother loaf and moved forth to adventure. Titty sprinkles.
So that's what's on that counter.
But
Yeah,
all
we're
things
gonna have
considered,
fun.
Iron Bread was fun to play. And I will consider that one. I will consider that one. But I think all in all, Game Break has been going pretty well.
I already know which visual novel I want to do next, but I don't know how long this Dysfunctional Systems is going to take me. Next one up is definitely Everlasting Summer, because apparently that one, no matter which ending you go for, it's trippy and weird and apparently for one of them, horrifying. And I'm curious to see just how well the translation went for that one, considering some of it is still in Russian, since it was a Russian producer. So, depending on how long Dysfunctional Systems takes me, that one's probably going to be up next. Either that, or I may just need to cleanse my palate and do some Fallout New Vegas.
I have a game that I'm actually pretty interested in testing out. Are either of you familiar at all with the game Besiege?
I've heard of it.
Besiege is pretty much like a medieval-themed sandbox game where you get to like make all sorts of like Da Vinci-esque contraptions and machines to defend your fort or defend whatever it is you're defending. It looks like a lot of fun. It looks, and like from what I've been seeing from like user created content from like I've been seeing all over the internet, you can have a lot of fun with it.
Cool.
To be fair, like a lot of what I saw on various websites were like Spore level inappropriate.
Oh dear.
So yeah. I don't think I'll go too crazy with Besiege, but I am definitely interested in like seeing like what I can do in this game, because it looks a lot of fun.
That reminds me, I need to figure out an image for potentially censored necessary images. Because visual novels.
Hmm.
Part of me is concerned about YouTube issues, and part of me is more concerned about if some of those images are actually in this current visual novel, that's a 14-year-old. That's not right. I don't care if it's a visual novel. But yeah, I need to figure that out potentially in the next episode or two.
We can talk about that after the show.
Yeah. You know, speaking of all this game break stuff, to our viewers and listeners, go to our YouTube channel, search for Full Coverage Writers, the Game Break series. It's all in one gigantic playlist at the moment. I think I'm going to start separating each game into its own little extra playlist, so if you want to watch just one game or one player, it'll be easier to search and keep track. That way it's not broken up. But if you want to see us play various crazy games because we need a break from our own creativity, Game Break seems to be a lot of fun for everyone involved.
And hopefully it'll be a lot of fun for any of the viewers out there.
Hopefully. If you do enjoy them, let us know in the comments.
Yes.
Feel free to suggest games you want us to play.
Oh, that too.
Eventually, I will open open up submissions or ideas for a horror game for me, just not Five Nights at Freddy's. I want to be able to actually progress in the damn game. But I'll take on a horror game for the cause. It may end up being Doom 3 for all I know. We'll see. But
I don't think I can do horror games. I'll never forget the time that I played Half-Life 2, and I'm not sure if you remember this. You might remember this.
I remember you progressing through it.
There was one portion of the game where I forget what the hell monster it was, but like these monsters came out of nowhere, and I screamed bloody murder because I didn't expect to see them coming.
The head crabs always did that to me in Half-Life 1, in the frickin' air ducts. I played Slender the 8 pages once. I got 1 page. I met Slendy. I never got the game again. Nope.
So yeah, it's safe to say that we're going to be at least me and Will anyway, are going to be staying away from the horror games or anything remotely frightening.
Mm-hmm.
There is a section in the BioShock I recorded today that creeped me out. You'll all see it when I get to it. Once it's up, you'll know it when it shows up.
Okay.
And to anyone who does eventually suggest a horror game for me, keep in mind I'm like Gavin from Achievement Hunter levels of bad in regards to gameplay. I'm not like a Markiplier or anything, and I actually want to progress through a game. I don't want it to just be a death compilation video. So be kind.
That's why I'll never record Half-Life. It'll just be a whole bunch of me dying.
Alright, I think we've rambled on long enough. Moving on. Let's see here. We don't have any new updates in regards to any events. I'm still waiting to hear back in regards to press for a couple things. I don't like how long that takes, but it is what it is. All the events that we're currently attending and trying to coordinate for are on the website, as always, if you want to meet us. As we mentioned before, a majority of what we do is on our YouTube channel. So go search for Full Coverage Writers or the Word Ninjas podcast or Game Break. Those are the main things that will make us pop up. Subscribe to the channel so you can see all the crazy things that we do on a daily basis now. And by all means, watch, comment, thumbs up the various videos. Converse with us. Let us know what we're doing right or wrong in regards to gameplay.
Yes. I actually realized earlier today, like you can just go to youtube.com/fullcoveragewriters and we show up. So
That actually works finally?
it does. It does. I tried it either yesterday or earlier today, and bloody hell, it worked.
About fucking time. That one's always been hit or miss for a while trying to get that to work, but if that's finally working, that's a lot easier.
Yep, it works. It works.
Yay! If you want to talk to us via social media, you can track us down on Twitter at FCWordNinja. You get bonus points if you use the hashtag WordNinjas. You can also follow us on Tumblr, fcwordninja.tumblr.com, and go check out our Facebook page, facebook.com/fullcoveragewriters. Converse with us, talk to us, continue the conversations, provide talkie points, engage with us. We like talking to people. If you want to help fund all of our crazy endeavors, which helps pay for audiobook recordings, convention attendance, tech and recording upgrades so that Richie stops complaining about how horrible we sound in the earlier episodes and all that, you can go check out our Etsy store where we have all sorts of shiny baubles. Etsy.com/shop/fullcoveragewriters. We have a whole array of buttons and magnets. We have bookmarks. We have our book, Word Ninja. Do you see a theme here? We have an ebook version of it. We have a workbook on warping the fabric of reality and time itself, so you can be creative, always useful. And we're always trying to toss new things on there when we get a chance, so definitely go check it out. And as always, the Word Ninjas live show podcast thing that we do every week is brought to you by Full Coverage Writers, which you can check out at fcwriters.com, which has the entire archive of the show. It has all of our Muse Food, which is a weekly compilation of writing and creative prompts. It has event stuff. It has workshops. It has worksheets. It has an About Us page that explains who all of us are. All sorts of good stuff. You should definitely go check it out. And with that, I feel like I've talked enough tonight. I think I'm done. I don't really want to talk anymore. I think I've completely monopolized this entire episode. So I want to sign out. If you want to actually...
Daryl Green has suggested Silent Hill as a game that one of us should play.
Specify which one and console. If it's for a computer, that would be easier, because that's the main method of recording we have at the moment.
We don't have the hardware to record off consoles at the moment.
Yeah.
Sad face.
We should specify that. If you're going to suggest a game, ideally Steam, because that's the most convenient method for at least myself. I'm not going to speak for others, but PC, Mac, I don't think anyone does Linux anything.
5.5-inch floppy disks.
Do I still have those? I don't know. I might.
Around somewhere.
I mean, yeah, I do still have. Actually, I still have the Intellivision, and I have the Atari 2600 downstairs. But I'd have to get the adapter to hook it up to the TV. Never mind recording. But yeah, primarily PC and Mac games. For suggestions, preferably. Yeah. Signing out, because I've talked enough. At least for tonight. If you want to continue talking to me in a non-oral manner, you can track me down on my personal Tumblr, fancypantswolf.tumblr.com. If you want to keep track of my very slow-moving trilogy at the moment, it's /andburntrilogy.tumblr.com. You can also catch me on the Fairy Tale podcast as Makarov on Monday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern Time on their channel. And various other methods, if you so choose, are in the About Us page over at fcwriters.com. Where can people find Will?
Most people can find me on my Tumblr page at darkhom.tumblr.com. It's DARKHOM for those listening to the audio one and can't see my fancy thingy, although that doesn't even have the Darkhom on it. For anything on my writing endeavors for Roommate, you can check that out at myroommatesastripper.tumblr.com.
And where can people track down Calvin?
Let's see, you can find me. What's the best place to find me these days? Twitter possibly, and Instagram definitely. Both are at CCWII. Tumblr is instacal.tumblr.com. And SoundCloud, which is soundcloud.com/soundsbycalvin.
All right. And for our co-hosts that were not able to join us tonight, all of their trackable down info is, again, on our About Us page. Go check it out. Talk to us as you see fit. That is going to wrap up an episode, I think. I don't really want to keep going, so let's end this thing. Thank you for joining us for episode 79 of Word Ninjas Live. Tune in next week for episode 80. Good Lord.
Right?
That's going to be a thing. Who knows? We may even have a guest for all I know. But until then, have a good night, everyone. Until next time.
Bye.
Adios. Uploading.
Goodness.
Hooray.
And we've had 4 out of 5 of our crew participate.
That's not bad at all.
I am curious to see what Justin's recording is going to be like once he finally gets to that game.
All in good time.
Let's see. I think I was going to say something. Yeah, I try not to force creativity too much, especially since the idea machine likes to rebel if I push too hard. Like if ideas don't come, that's my cue to take a break and just like give myself time to decompress and try to deal with work out whatever is going on, or maybe just give myself some time to relax and not do something for a change. Sit in bed for a while, watch a little TV, stare at YouTube for a little bit. But procrastination can be good sometimes. Oftentimes for me, taking some time off helps the ideas start to regenerate. So
I think I was just mostly
once in a while.
I was just mostly frustrated because I had set aside the whole weekend to actually do like 3 hours of productivity a day. I was barely awake for 3 hours a day that weekend. I was lucky if I was awake that much.
Plague of Doom is like a company that makes what they make wants nothing to do with 50 Shades of Grey.
That should tell you something.
Yeah.
There's also minimal tie-over between those two.
Well, they usually like do silly little sales when big movies and whatnot are coming out, just like weird tie-in sales. So they could have made some kind of sale related to that, but after doing the research and reading the books, they decided they wanted nothing to do with it at all. They wanted to be completely hands-off.
Goodness. I know people who have gone to see the movie and read the books. They are brave people.
So long as they accept that it has absolutely nothing to do with a real BDSM relationship,
Hmm.
and is everything to do with a horrific abusive relationship.
Details for
And even,
some.
they even tried to defend themselves on Twitter, comparing themselves to Mockingjay. They said
Uh,
something about, you guys don't like us for the abuse in our movie, but you guys are fine with Mockingjay, with children getting, hurt and killed. Except, as someone pointed out in Mockingjay, it's pointed out that, the whole point is how horrible it is that these kids are being made to do this. It's not being romanticized. It's being pointed out as this is a horrible, terrible, awful thing.
it's more the media which is trying to spin it in disconcerting ways,
Right.
both for Mockingjay and 50 Shades.
Mm.
Media's disconcertingly special about those types of things.
Yeah. The media only cares about ratings.
And advertisements. Can't forget that.
Yeah, whatever makes them money. Extraneating circumstances. You want to be creative. The spirit is willing, but the body is not.
Yeah. Which is why this week is all the more filled with stuff that needs to happen.
Mm.
Let's see here. Checking the comments. Yeah, of course Richie doesn't believe me about productivity. Not surprising. And Peter suggests that I should workshop. The comment is CJ should workshop his story. I presume he means mine and not his. It's probably for the safety of mankind that we don't do that. At least not for a good while. This is barely even alpha stages of a draft.
Mm.
No one should have to workshop and read an alpha stage draft. That's how 50 Shades happened. That's an alpha stage draft that somehow managed to get farther than it should have.
I learned humorous news about 50 Shades, but I don't know if it's appropriate to... Well, I could mention this. I'll just be vague about it. You guys, some of our viewers may be familiar with, I think we've mentioned it before, the website Bad Dragon.
We've mentioned it on panels and on the show. And probably
if you're familiar with it, you know what they produce. Not safe for work. They did their research.
Materials.
They did their research and absolutely refused to take advantage of the 50 Shades of Grey movie because they find it so abhorrible.
Good evening, ladies and menfolk. Welcome to episode 79 of Word Ninjas Live. I am Charles, your instigator of literary and creative productivity and insanity. And joining me tonight is my regular slew of co-hosts, Will.
Hello.
And Calvin.
Greetings.
We do not have any special guests tonight. We did not manage to kidnap any, unfortunately, so it's just going to be a relatively regular episode this time around.
Yep, you're stuck with just us this week.
But to make up for that, we have a whole slew of various highlights. But first, talkie points. The first and only talkie point for this week is one from me. When life, the universe, and everything tries to go against your productivity, do you choose to be creative? Do you force yourself to be creative? Or do you just choose to procrastinate instead? And this became a question worth talking about, at least in my perspective, because I didn't do jack shit this last week. I chose procrastination over productivity because I got a plague of doom, so I just hibernated through the entire weekend where I had 3 days set aside to do absolutely everything productive, and no, just sleep, and more sleep, and coughing, and pain. But I was kind of curious, when not sick, if you don't have that excuse, how do people handle these types of situations? Because it does seem to come up on a relatively regular basis, where something tries to get in the way of productivity.
Well, I'd say, as tempting as procrastination is, over procrastination can be bad.
How
It's,
so?
what was that?
How so?
Well, like a little bit of procrastinating, like if life like throws you a curveball, it may be okay to procrastinate a little bit just to help get your mind back into things. But if you procrastinate and don't be creative too much, you could fall into that slump of doom and despair, and then it's all the harder to crawl back out.
I would never do such a thing.
Though I also advise against forcing creativity because that could just be like beating your head against a wall. So I would say I usually baby step it. I actually have that going on right now where I have to realign my creative endeavors, I think, because I've been trying to force creativity and the final product is subpar compared to my previous works. So I still need to be creative, but I need to be more selective about what I'm creative on, with some procrastinating on the side.
Everybody needs downtime every once in a while, even amidst productivity.
Mm. Like watching Game Break.
We've been surprisingly diligent about that, too. I don't think we've missed a day yet.
If we've gone, let's see.
It's hard to procrastinate playing a video game.
At least on
I
purpose.
think
Yeah.
I think we've gone 10 days straight.